"Does your wife come here often?" The waiter didn't ask it like a normal question. He said it quietly, like someone testing the weight of a secret. I frowned. "No," I replied. "It's our first time here. My name is Ethan Cole, I'm 35. And if you think you know how this ends, stay tuned." My wife Laura and I had just sat down at a new restaurant downtown. The place was elegant but small, the kind where the lighting is dim and the tables are close enough that conversations blur together. While I was looking through the menu, Laura suddenly stood up. "I'll be right back," she said. No explanation. She walked toward the hallway near the restrooms. At least, that's where I thought she went. When the waiter returned to take our order, he noticed the empty chair across from me. "Your wife stepped out?" he asked. "Yeah," I said casually. "Bathroom probably." The waiter hesitated. Then he leaned closer. "If this is really the first time you've been here," he said quietly, "you should come with me." I blinked. "What?" He glanced toward the kitchen door, then back at me. "There's something you should see. Have you ever had a stranger say something that instantly makes your stomach drop, even though you have no idea why?" I slowly stood up. The waiter pushed open the kitchen door. "Follow me," he said. I stepped inside. And the moment I looked across the kitchen, I saw my wife. But she wasn't alone. I expected to see my wife near the restroom. Instead, she was standing near the back counter of the kitchen. And she was hugging someone. Not a quick greeting. Not a polite hello. A long, familiar hug. The man she was holding stepped back slightly. He was wearing a chef's jacket. For a second my brain tried to convince me it was nothing. Maybe an old friend. Maybe someone she recognized. But then the waiter beside me whispered something that made my stomach tighten. "That's why I asked if she comes here often." I frowned. "What do you mean?" The waiter kept his eyes on them. "She's been here before." My chest felt heavy. "How many times?" He hesitated. "Enough that the staff thought he was her husband." The words hit harder than the slap in any story you've ever heard. I stepped forward slightly so I could hear them better. My wife laughed softly. The kind of laugh I hadn't heard from her in months. "You didn't tell me he'd come tonight," the chef said quietly. Laura shrugged. "He had no idea about this place." The chef smiled. "Does he still think those dinners are business meetings?" My heart dropped. Business meetings. That was what Laura always told me when she came home late. I stayed silent in the doorway. Then the chef said something that made the entire situation suddenly much worse. "So, tonight's the night you finally tell him?" My wife shook her head. "No," she said calmly. "Tonight, he signs the papers." My first instinct was to walk straight into the kitchen and confront them. But I didn't. Instead, I stayed where I was and kept listening. The chef leaned against the counter. "You're sure he'll sign?" he asked. Laura nodded. "He trusts me." The confidence in her voice made my stomach twist. "What about the house?" the chef asked. "All included," she replied. "Once he signs the joint transfer, everything moves to the new account." The new account. I had never heard those words before. Have you ever realized in one moment that the person you trusted most has been planning something behind your back for months? Because suddenly every strange thing from the last few weeks made sense. The business dinners. The legal email she told me not to worry about. The documents she asked me to sign but said we'd review later. The chef lowered his voice. "And after that?" Laura shrugged. "After that, there's no reason for me to stay married." The words landed like a punch. Not anger. Something colder. Calculation. The waiter beside me shifted uncomfortably. "I thought you should know," he whispered. I nodded slowly. Then I stepped forward. The kitchen door swung open. Both of them turned. Lara's eyes widened the moment she saw me standing there. For a second she couldn't speak. Then she forced a smile. "Ethan, what are you doing back here?" I looked at her. Then at the chef. Then back at her again. "I think the better question," I said calmly, "is what you were planning to make me sign tonight." I walked back to the table slowly, trying to look normal. Trying to look like a man who hadn't just heard his entire marriage being negotiated in a restaurant kitchen. The waiter stayed behind. When I reached the table, the first thing I noticed was the folder. Black. Thin. Sitting right where my plate should have been. Lara returned a few seconds later. Smiling. Like nothing had happened. "Sorry," she said, sitting down. The line was long. I looked at her. Then at the folder. "What's that?" I asked. "Oh," she said casually, sliding it toward me. "Just some paperwork from the bank." "The bank?" "Right. Nothing complicated," she continued. "Just a property adjustment. It makes taxes easier." I opened the folder. The words on the first page made my chest tighten. Property transfer agreement. Owner Ethan Carter. Transfer to Laura Carter. I looked up slowly. You want me to sign this? She nodded. It's just a formality. Have you ever watched someone lie to you while smiling like everything is perfectly normal? Because Laura looked completely relaxed. Like she had already won. The pen was placed carefully beside the papers. Go ahead, she said softly. Sign it. I held the pen for a second. Then I placed it back on the table. Lara's smile faded slightly. Something wrong? She asked. I looked at her calmly. Then said the one thing she definitely wasn't expecting. I know about the chef. Her face froze instantly. Lara didn't blink. For a second she just stared at me, completely still. Then she laughed. A quick forced laugh. I have no idea what you're talking about, she said. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't argue. I simply leaned forward. You've been meeting him here for months. Her fingers tightened slightly on the edge of the table. But she recovered quickly. You followed me? She asked. No. I tapped the folder lightly. The waiter told me. That changed everything. Her eyes flicked toward the kitchen door. Just for a second. But it was enough. You shouldn't believe random staff gossip, she said calmly. Then explain the chef, I replied. She opened her mouth. Then closed it again. Because she knew exactly what I had heard. For a moment neither of us spoke. Then Lara did something interesting. She pushed the papers toward me again. You're overthinking this, she said quietly. Just sign. I shook my head. No. Her patience finally cracked. Ethan, she said sharply, don't make this difficult. I leaned back in my chair. You mean like planning a divorce after transferring my house? Her face lost color. Slowly. Carefully. Who told you that? She whispered. I heard it myself. The silence between us stretched. Then she said something that revealed the real problem. You weren't supposed to hear that. I nodded once. Yeah, I said. That seems to be the theme tonight. Then someone stepped up behind her chair. A voice spoke calmly. I think he heard enough. It was the chef. And he wasn't smiling anymore. The chef stood behind Lara's chair. Arms crossed. No friendly smile now. Just irritation. Lara turned slowly. You shouldn't have come out here, she said under her breath. He shrugged. He already knows. Her eyes flashed with anger. You were supposed to keep him distracted. I watched both of them. Two people who had clearly been working together for a long time. Relax, the chef said. He can't do anything about it now. That caught my attention. I looked at him. What exactly can't I do? He leaned slightly toward the table. The papers are legal, he said calmly. Lara nodded. All you have to do is sign them, she added. And if I don't? The chef smiled. Then things get complicated. For a second nobody spoke. Then Lara sighed. Like someone who had decided it was time to stop pretending. Ethan, she said, this doesn't have to be dramatic. I laughed once. You plan to take my house and divorce me. That's business. Business. 7 years of marriage reduced to a transaction. The chef tapped the folder with one finger. You're still signing it, he said. I shook my head slowly. No. Lara leaned closer. You don't understand something, she whispered. What's that? She smiled again. The house isn't actually the most important thing. That made my stomach tighten. Then what is? She looked directly at me. The account. I frowned. What account? The chef chuckled quietly. The one with $2 million in it? The account with $2 million. For a second I thought I misheard him. I looked at Lara. Then back at the chef. What account? Lara tilted her head. You really don't know? Her tone almost sounded amused. That money came from your company bonus last year, she continued. The investment account you opened. I felt my chest tighten. Yes, I said slowly. My investment account. The chef shook his head. Not anymore. I frowned. What does that mean? Lara slid the folder toward me again and flipped to the second page. Look closely. I read the document. Then read it again. My stomach dropped. Because the paper wasn't just about the house. Buried halfway down the page was another clause. Financial authorization transfer. It would give Lara control over the entire investment account. $2 million. All she needed was my signature. Lara watched my reaction carefully. You didn't read the documents I showed you last month, she said calmly. No, I replied. I trusted you. For the first time that night, she didn't have a response ready. The chef spoke instead. Look, he said, Just sign it? Everyone walks away happy. I closed the folder slowly. No. The chef's smile disappeared. You're making this harder than it needs to be. Laura leaned forward. Ethan, she said quietly, think about this. I have. I pushed the folder back across the table. And you made one big mistake. Her eyes narrowed. What mistake? I leaned back. You assumed I came here tonight unprepared. Laura stared at me. You came prepared? She said. The chef laughed. Prepared for what? I reached into my jacket pocket and placed my phone on the table. The screen was still recording. The chef's smile disappeared instantly. Lara's eyes dropped to the phone. Then back to me. You recorded this? She whispered. Everything, I said. The conversation in the kitchen. The plan to transfer the house. The account. The divorce. Every word. The chef straightened. That recording won't hold up anywhere, he said. Maybe, I replied calmly. But the fraud attempt will. Lara's confidence finally cracked. You're bluffing. I shook my head. Actually, you made it easy. I slid the folder back to her. You brought the documents. Her hands trembled slightly now. And you tried to trick me into signing them under false pretenses. The chef grabbed the edge of the table. You think you can ruin us with that? I stood up. No. Then I pointed toward the entrance. But the lawyer sitting at the front table might. Both of them turned. Near the window, a man in a suit slowly stood up. He had been watching the entire conversation. Lara's face went completely pale. I picked up my jacket. 7 years, I said quietly. You could have just asked for a divorce. Neither of them spoke. I left the restaurant. Behind me, their entire plan had just collapsed.